Hey, I'm Courtney Waterman, your tutor. Lover of anime, manga, and math. And you just tuned into another session of Tutor Me Sempai. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into a 7th grade topic, simple interest. Now, if you're new to my channel, I'll be putting time codes in for this video in the description box below, so use that to skip ahead to whatever part of the video you think is most interesting. As always, if you have any questions about what you see here today, or even your own homework, you can always put it in the comment box below, or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. Today's video is going to have 4 parts, so leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and let's get started. The first question we have to ask ourselves today is, what is interest? Before we can talk about simple interest, we need to have a basic understanding of what interest is. Now, interest is just going to be a fee or reward that is paid for borrowing something for an extended period of time. I'll say that again. Interest is just a fee or reward that is paid for borrowing something for an extended period of time. Now, this is at a really high level, just to make sure we understand at a very basic high level what interest is. It's basically just a fee or a reward. Now, you have run into this, I'm sure, in one form or fashion in your life. Let's look at some real world scenarios in which kind of drives this point home. Let's say you and your friends go out bowling one night. And if you're not into bowling, let's say instead of bowling, you went karaoke night. And when you got there, when you got to the building, you saw a sign that said $10 an hour. Now, you and your friends know that this means that you're going to be paying $10 if you stay 1 hour. If you stay 2 hours, you're going to be paying a fee of $20. And the fee keeps going up the longer you stay. This is essentially interest. Now, it's not called interest, it's the fee for booking that place, but the idea is interest. Remember, interest is just going to be a fee or reward that is paid for borrowing something for an extended period of time. In this case, if you go out karaoke night, you are the borrower and you are going to be borrowing a room for an extended period of time. Let's say an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or more. And in return for borrowing that time or that space for that amount of time, you pay a fee. So the company gets interest on renting out that room to you. Same thing for bowling. Whenever you go bowling, you hold that lane for an extended period of time and you pay a fee for doing so. At the end of that time, you give back the lane or you give back the room. You've paid your money and you've had a good time. However, the business gets back their original whatever they lent out, and on top of that, they got the interest or the fee for lending it out in the first place. This at a high level is what interest is. It's not called interest in these situations, but the idea behind it is what interest is. Now, interest doesn't only show up when you rent out spaces. Actually, it's more prevalent when you're talking about money. So let's say you have a ton of it. You have a lot of money, and that money is not so safe in your house. So you decide to put that money in a bank, and that bank is going to hold on to your money and keep it safe for you, so whenever you want it, it's there. And because of that, you keep that money in that bank for an extended period of time. However, that bank is going to give you, let's say every week, every month, or every year, a certain amount of money back. And that's for holding on to your money for an extended period of time. That money that they give back to you is what we call interest. Now, you might be asking, wait a minute, Courtney, how can they pay you money for just holding on to your money? They're doing you a service for keeping it safe. So why are they then having to pay on top of that? Well, that's because banks actually do use the money that they borrow from people. So let's say you give them $100. They can then invest that money and let's say they make $10 off of it. Well, that $10 is profit. They didn't have it originally and they used your money to get it. So to say thank you, they give you a fee or a reward in the form of, let's say, 50 cents. And they keep $9.50 for themselves. But that wouldn't be possible unless they were holding on to your money first. Remember, they use your money to get more money. So if they didn't have your money, they wouldn't be able to get more of it. So they say thank you in the form of interest or that reward for letting them borrow your money for an extended period of time. So at a high level, we now know what interest is. However, what is simple interest? There are different forms of interest, and simple interest is just one of those forms. Now, simple interest is going to be interest paid on the initial amount borrowed. So that means you give them a certain amount of money and they calculate how much interest they want to give you based off of that money. And however long they hold on to that money, they're going to give you the same amount of interest over time. So let's say you give $100 and they say, if you give me $100, I'll give you $1 every month. So you say, great, that's a great deal. So every month, so in January, they give you $1. In February, they give you $1. In March, they give you $1. And you see your initial amount is going to be growing, right? Because you started at 100, now you have 101 after January, 102 after February, 103 after March. However, they're only ever looking at the initial amount given when they calculate how much interest they're going to be paying you. So you may be getting more money, but your interest amount payments are not increasing. This is simple interest. We keep it simple. Simple interest is only calculated off of the initial amount borrowed. And there's a formula to help us calculate this. This is going to be our formula to calculate simple interest. I equals PRT. I equals P times R times T. Now, I is going to be interest, and that's once again what we're trying to find, right? So I equals principal, P times R, the rate, times time. Remember, I said that interest is going to be the amount that's paid for borrowing something over an extended period of time. So T, time, is really important in calculating your interest. Rate is going to be something they're going to be using to figure out exactly how much, what percentage of what they borrowed they're going to be giving back to you. And P, principal, is going to be that core amount, that initial amount that you gave them when they first borrowed your money. So in the case where you dropped off $100 in the bank, that $100 is your principal. That's the initial amount of money that the interest is going to be calculated on. So I equals PRT is going to be the formula we are going to be using to derive our simple interest. Let's look at a quick example. So for this example, we have R, P, and T given to us, and we just got to figure out what our I is. So we're going to plug all of these numbers into our formula to figure out how much interest we're actually going to be paid. Now there's something to note that I didn't say in the previous section, and that is T is typically done in years. Unless they say otherwise, you can almost assume that T is going to be years. They may even specifically say that this is the annual interest rate. That lets you know that T is going to be the amount of time in years. So in this case, our T is going to be 2 years. And we want to find out how much interest we're going to be getting at the end of 2 years if we gave $100 and we have the interest rate of 5%. So let's put all of this into our formula. So we have I equals P, which is 100, times R, which is a percentage. So we have to do something beyond just writing 5. We have to convert this into a decimal. Now, what do you get when you convert that into a decimal? Well, this is going to be 0.05, right? Times T. Now, what is T? T is 2, right? 2 years, so T is 2. This is going to be what we get when we plug in all of our numbers. Remember, you have to make sure you're converting your percentage into a decimal before you can do this math. Now, when you calculate all of this, you find out that I is just going to be $10. Because remember, this is money here. So $10 is going to be the amount of interest you get for throwing in $100 at a 5% annual interest rate for 2 years. Let's look at one more example to drive a slightly different point home. In this example, we have a lot of the same numbers, but notice that instead of 2 years, we have 6 months here. But I just told you in the previous example that this time is typically done in years, but here we have 6 months. What are we going to do? how do we get this into years? Because that's exactly what we need to do. Well, 6 months is what when you think about years? Well, 6 months is half of a year, right? So technically, instead of having 6 months here, you don't want to put 6 for your t. You want to convert this into years, which is just going to be half of a year. So 0.5 years. Make sure that this is the t that you're using. You don't want to use 6 because that is probably going to give you the wrong answer. Unless they tell you that this is not an annual interest rate, then you want to make sure you're sticking with your years, so convert everything to years. Now that we have our updated time, let's plug everything into our formula and figure out just how much interest we're going to be getting after 6 months or half a year of throwing in $100 at 5% annual interest rate. So I is going to equal 100 again times that 5%, but once again, we have to convert that to a decimal, so 0.05. But in this time, we have 0.5 for our time. So when you calculate all of this, you find out that your interest for just 6 months instead of 2 years is actually going to be $2.50 now. And this makes sense if you think about it. Remember, simple interest is going to be the same amount of interest that you get paid based off the initial amount. The time that you keep the money in just means that you get more of that same amount. So previously we found out we got $10 after 2 years, but after just 6 months, you're only getting $2.50. Well, after another 6 months, this is going to go to $5, right? After another 6 months, that's going to go to $7.50. And after that last 6 months, putting you at 2 years, you're going to get to $10. So you see that our answers are adding up with each other. It's just that you didn't have your money in there for that long, so you didn't get as much interest. Once you have your initial numbers, the interest you get paid for that time period does not change. So I hope you're able to follow into these examples, and I hope you see that calculating your simple interest doesn't have to be that hard. Actually, should be rather simple. But if you had any questions, no worries. Feel free to put them in the comment box below or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me about it there. If you haven't done so already, remember to leave that like. It really helps the channel by letting YouTube know that you found this video helpful. And if you found it helpful, so can someone else. So leave a like, smash the subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with a friend. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I'm really hoping this helped with your homework, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Courtney, and this is another session of Tutor Me Sempai.